Okay, the last course structure model, course design model that we're going to look at is the unit by unit model. So this will be part four of this series, of our 4-part series. It looks at how you can sort out your online course with a variety of ways. We looked at a week by week model, a module by module model, and we looked at a project by project model. This is the fourth one, which is going to be unit by unit model. And this will be a little bit different than the others. And again, while you're designing your course in D2L, you may use bits and pieces of all of these things. This is designed to be flexible for you so that you can set the course out in a way that's going to impact your students in a positive way. And remember, as you're working through all these different course models, the goal is to move your students toward the specific learning outcomes and learning goals that you have for them by the end of your course. That's what we're working on. So let's take a look at how the unit by unit model looks. Then again, this is just an example put together to give you an idea. This is not a specific way to set up your unit by unit model. It's just sort of something to get your brain juices flowing. First off, always include your introductory module. Always have that in your online course. It humanizes the course if they can see a video of you speaking about what the course is going to be like, or a video of you talking about who you are and what your background is. Always include your syllabus in there. And it's a good idea too with your syllabus to copy your syllabus from a Word document and paste it into D2L. Your students are going to engage your course in a variety of ways, whether it's going to be through their phone, a tablet, or the computer. And if you copy and paste your syllabus into the D2L content page, then your syllabus will scale appropriately depending on how students are viewing your course. Always put some sort of introductory discussion board prompt in there for your students to participate in. A low stakes, low risk question that students won't be intimidated to answer. What their favorite dessert is, what their favorite meal is. If they could go anywhere in the world and live for a week, where would it be? Things that aren't going to intimidate them. Put together a help me discussion board so that this can be a place where your students can ask questions that the rest of the class may need to hear. And you may need to also speak with your students about what's appropriate for this public question space and what's more appropriate for private conversation between you and a student. And then put a weekly announcement in there to let the students know, hey, you're paying attention to what's going on, you're seeing what's going on, and address any sort of things that you've seen through a general announcement. With your students, it's always a good idea to remind them to set a couple of alarms on their phones so that they can get their work done in a timely fashion. One of the things that online courses can struggle with is students waiting till the very last day to start working on everything that is due for that particular assignment. And so if you can put an announcement out for the first couple of weeks of your course that reminds students to set an alarm, to check into the class, to do the work that they need to do to be successful, that can help in a variety of ways. And as we step into this unit by unit learning model, remember that consistency is very important. So if you start off the first couple weeks of your class with specific assignments due on, say, Tuesday or Wednesday of a week, then continue that pattern all through the length of the course. So for me, when I teach in an online class, I always require students to participate at least twice a week, and there's always some sort of activity, project, learning thing that's due. The first participation has to occur by Wednesday, second participation has to occur by Saturday at midnight, and the weekly assignment is always due by Sunday at midnight. And it's like that for every week that I teach. So even if you're using a unit by unit model, you still need to create those same habits, that these things are due on certain days all throughout the length of the course. So let's look at an example of what your first unit could look like. And keep in mind that a unit of learning may or may not be 1 week long. So this unit could be 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. It just depends on what works best for your course and how you're teaching it. Provide the students an introduction video. In this introduction video, you're going to introduce this first unit of learning, maybe even the first chapter of learning, or whatever speaks into that course that can prepare the students for what's coming. Maybe what their goals are for this unit, or where they're going to be at the end, or what they're going to produce as a measure of how you can determine whether they're learning what you're trying to teach them. Provide the reading for them, so that could come from an online textbook, an open educational resource. There could be a variety of peer-reviewed research articles that you have links to, or this could be an online textbook. It just depends on what works best for you. This could also be a place where maybe you need to speak into your students with a 15 or 20 minute lecture about the things that are super key that they need to be paying attention to while they're reading. And then split that chapter up into specific topics. And the reason that you want to do this is because when you can chunk your large unit into smaller bite-sized pieces, it's easier for your students to know where they left off. So if you put together a content page in D2L that scrolls forever and it's like 10,000 words long, then your students get lost in there. And they may not be able to complete that whole assignment at one time. And so now they've got to come back into the assignment, try and figure out where they were, scroll. If you can chunk your topic into bite-sized pieces, chunk your chapter into bite-sized pieces, then when your students can complete a piece, and then they know they're done, and they can do it in a timely fashion, and when they start the next one, then they know right where to go. So keep that in mind and add as many subtopics as you need. D2L is very flexible. You can put several subtopics in there. And then at the end of that first chapter, have a low stakes discussion board assignment. Ask a very rich question and require your students to participate by responding to 2 or 3 classmates. If you have a class that's about 20 students or larger, consider breaking your discussion board class into discussion board groups of 5. 4 or 5 students each, because then they can have a really rich discussion just amongst themselves. One thing to keep in mind when you're working with the discussion boards is that if you have a class and you tell your students that they need to respond to every other student in order to get full credit for the week, that can be a very big hurdle to overcome for some of the students. Why? There's always a student out there who waits till the very last second to submit all their discussion board posts. And if you set that timer to go off at midnight, somebody's going to submit something at 11:50, and the rest of the class may or may not be awake at that point in time. So when you're putting together these discussion board ideas, if you want everybody to do that, then you need to have a specific deadline for everybody to have posted, and then another specific deadline for everybody to have responded. Don't make it all at once. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Now that we've wrapped up chapter 1 with a discussion board topic, then we move into chapter 2. We provide what that reading is going to be, the peer-reviewed research, or the online textbook, or the open education resource, or the instructional material that you've created and developed. And we put that together, and then the topics that go with chapter 2, however many it needs to be, and then a chapter 2 discussion board. So this is sort of how your first unit would look, and you would do it for however many chapters of learning you need to put together for this unit. And then we come to the end where we have an exam. And remember, your students are taking an online course because it's flexible. So offer an online exam is important. It helps you see what your students have and haven't learned, where they're struggling. It allows the students to know what they have a good handle on and where they can improve. But also, it is an online course. So keep in mind, students could be working together on this, or using the internet to help them while they're taking their exam. So keep all of that in mind. And if you have a high stakes exam that requires students to work individually, that requires some proctoring, there are services available at the library where you can do that, or perhaps even in your own departments. There's ways that you can utilize your department to ensure that occurs. There's also going to be a proctoring service available in the very near future that you can utilize as well. Having said that, allow about 24 hours for students to take that exam. It's in your syllabus that you're going to have 3 or 4 exams, or 5, or however many that you're going to have, but make sure that the students have a time period to take those exams inside of. So don't require them to take the exam on Thursday between 5 p.m. and 8 p.m. and it's a 3-hour window that they can do it, and the exam takes 3 hours. That's a little unfair to them because they're taking this class for the flexibility that it offers. Give them a 24-hour window to take that exam. Let them know when that window is going to open ahead of time. And don't be afraid to provide opportunities for them to have some sort of review with you along the way. Take that exam, give them a couple opportunities to take the exam if you want, and then we are ready to move into the second unit of learning. And this is going to look very similar to the first, with the unit introduction, the chapter 1 reading, all the subtopics, a low stakes discussion board or quiz, and so on and so forth through all of the units. And your units here can be in a variety of lengths. Don't forget, they could be as long as 5 or 6 weeks or as short as a week or two. But this would be an example of how you could organize your online course in a unit by unit structure.